Hey, what's up, guys? I was thinking about, we were talking, I was at work and we were talking about like things that happened in the past that were interesting to us or that changed our lives or had a big impact in our lives. And I've had a lot of those moments in my life, but so has everybody. But I always have there's this really fascinating story that I have that I carry with me, an experience that I'll always remember that I thought was fascinating. But I used to work for this company, a Japanese company here in Palo Alto, and and uh, and they were doing a lot of work out here with a lot of the Silicon Valley. And I took a position, and it's actually kind of a crazy background how I ended up getting this position. But effectively, I was shot, and then the next day, I walked in with my bullet wound and still walking, and took the interview, and I got hired just because of that simple fact. But that's a video or a story that I can make in the future if anybody's interested. Let me know in the comments. But I ended up getting this position at this Japanese company. And for the first 2 years, well, they described me as like the rabbit foot of the company because I was shot. And the next day I got hired. They're like, "You're the rabbit foot." It turned out I kind of was. Within the first 2 years of me being there, and not only because of me, but because of the team and just kind of coincidental luck, we beat all-time company record in sales, and so I was considered for a position in leadership. And in Japan, it's very hierarchical. There's a hierarchy of people. So there's me, then there's my manager, and then there's his manager, and then there's the office manager. The office manager is kind of like the head honcho in Japanese culture. And so I knew the office manager because, of course, I worked in the office. But to get a meeting with the office manager was something that was either serious or it was either really good. In my case, it was really good. So my manager came up to me one day and he was like, "We're considering you for this leadership position." I said, "Okay." He goes, "You're going to meet with Iga-san." That was the office manager's name. Iga is a famous samurai family name. And so I said, "Okay." And they put it sometime in the future, like a month away. And in this particular time, we were getting ready for mass production on one of our biggest companies or clients that we had. And I was the team lead in that position. And so one day I got a call from the customer. An emergency happened in Japan. And right away, I started packing my things. I came back to the office, started packing my things, bought a ticket that day to Japan. And as I'm walking out of my office and into my car to head over to the airport, Iga-san, the office manager, stops by my desk. He goes, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "Hey, I have to go to Japan. They called me in. We have an emergency right before mass production." And he said, "Okay." And he handed me a Post-it note. And he said, "Can you give me this magazine?" And I kind of knew Iga-san. He was like, "Can you give me this magazine?" And it was a car magazine. And I said, "Sure." And I put the Post-it note in my briefcase or in my bag, and I left. And I remember getting to Japan, and it was so hectic. I spent like 2 weeks there, and we ended up fixing the problem, but it was chaotic. And so I packed my things. I think it was that one Friday, and I'm about to leave back to the United States. And my wife hits me up, "Hey, did you go buy that? Did you go buy that magazine that Iga-san wanted?" I said, "Oh man, I forgot." She goes, "You better go get it." I said, "You're right." So I was going to Tokyo, which I think was north at the time from north. Yes, I was supposed to go north, but the magazine shop was south. And so I had a 2-hour trip up north, but I had to actually go down south to get about an hour to get the magazine. So I'm like, So I jump on a train and I decide I'm gonna go south to get that magazine. So I take the train down to the magazine or to the exit, take the exit, walk with my luggage, I don't know, half a mile into a small magazine store, like a hole in the wall. And as I walk in, there's a gentleman, thin, kind of built, behind the counter with his legs crossed, smoking a cigarette, reading a magazine. And as I walk in, he looks up to me and he goes, Soto-san. He says my last name, San. And I said, yes. And he flips through the magazines, pulls out of magazines, puts it right there. I give him, I think it was like 3,000 or 4,000 yen at the time. I don't remember. It was fairly cheap. And he winked at me and he kind of shrugged, said, okay. And I took off because I had to go catch a plane. I grabbed the stuff, I took off. And when I arrived back to the United States, I dropped off the magazine at Iga-san's office. And later on that day, I was having lunch with who my boss was, Junpei. And I said, hey, I want to prepare for, the interview coming up. And he said, oh, the interview's done. You got the job. And I said, what do you mean? The interview is on the 19th. It's barely the 3rd. And he said, your interview was getting the magazine for Iga-san in such a hectic and chaotic time in our lives with mass production. If you can be entrusted with being asked to do something from management in such a chaotic time, you're worthy of leadership. So that was an interesting time in my life where my interview was actually me getting the magazine in Japan from my manager. Interesting story, huh? Have a good one, guys.